So this is the 0750 hours GMT edition of the Khoodeelaar television channel, being broadcast only on the internet, not on satellite, not on terrestrial, and most certainly not on cable platforms. This is the Baby Angel Geronimo Editions Khoodeelaar television channel, broadcasting on the 4th of March 2023 at 0750 GMT. The first thing that we think we can talk about is the featuring of Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel Oakeshott has been mainly condemned by other so-called journalists in Fleet Street, including, it now appears, the woman known as a Channel 4 News presenter, Kathy Newman, but she didn't communicate her hostility to and mocking of Isabel Oakeshott on Channel 4 News, as far as I can see. She did that on Times Radio, which is owned by, of course, the owner of the Times and the Sun on Sunday and the Sunday Times newspapers, described as dirty digger by the Private Eye magazine. So the Private Eye magazine itself is not known as a fan of Isabel Oakeshott. Isabel Oakeshott has featured in Private Eye quite a few times. And all the times that she has featured in Private Eye have been more or less not very complimentary, are they? Private Eye has repeatedly mentioned the fact that Isabel Oakeshott is a liar and betrayed. What's her name? I'm looking for the picture of. I'm looking for the picture of this woman, wife of Chris Huhne, Vicky Price. Private Eye has even praised a convicted liar, Vicky Price. The Vicky Price was the former wife of Chris Huhne, the convicted leader of the Lib Dems, the leading cabinet member of the Condom coalition, fronted by David Cameron. Now, I'm looking for the issue of the Private Eye that has the piece against Isabel Oakeshott and a picture of Vicky Price. Vicky Price is pictured in the piece in Private Eye as being a victim of Isabel Oakeshott's particular betrayal of Vicky Price as a source. That is what. Is this the Private Eye? It is the Private Eye, yes. And where is the piece that I'm looking for in this issue that is run by Private Eye against Isabel Oakeshott. Now, I don't think that Private Eye should have run this piece against Isabel Oakeshott, especially if Private Eye is really interested in the truth about what the contents of the leaked dossier or the leaked WhatsApp messages are about. The contents are about including about the claim that as the incumbent at the time in the Department of Health as the Health Secretary, Matt Hancock stopped or was opposed to the action being taken from residents, the care home residents that died during the pandemic. I shall continue to look for the item until I find it. I don't know where. The main row that Kathy Newman had with Isabel Oakeshott, well, the presenter of Times Radio, the award guest, of course. And she said, Kathy Newman said to Isabel Oakeshott, things about Isabel Oakeshott had said about David Cameron and the pig. These are anecdotes against Isabel Oakeshott that are being referred to in order to discredit Isabel Oakeshott. Now, our campaign is not and has not been in any way or shape anything that Isabel Oakeshott agreements, contracts, whatever. And as we have said in the last few days, regardless of the motive, Isabel Oakeshott's motive for publishing dialogue apps, WhatsApps, and dossier files So, whatever the motives behind Isabel Oakeshott making these communications, WhatsApp communications available to the Telegraph, the focus should not be on Isabel Oakeshott's motive whatsoever. Why? Because the contents of the disclosed WhatsApp's communications exchanges are objectively defined, far more important for the society, for the public, than any motive behind Isabel Oakeshott disclosing those whatsoever. So that is the view that we take, and for that reason, we find that Kathy Newman herself behaved irresponsibly and trivially and in a petty way that discredits her, because she should not have been focusing on Isabel Oakeshott's personal narrative about whether she betrayed Vicky Price or whoever, although she didn't mention Vicky Price, but that is what is contained in the long list of allegations against Isabel Oakeshott, that Fleet Street, including Private Lie, are carrying and running and holding against Isabel Oakeshott. As I said, as a Brexiteer, Isabel Oakeshott is not somebody politically kind of supportable, but that is about Brexit. This particular cachet exposing Matt Hancock and others deals with the whole crisis in government over the pandemic. And the crisis in the pandemic affected literally people's lives and deaths. So, why would Kathy Newman target Isabel Oakeshott in the personal way that she did do? And what benefit would that bring to the idea, the cause, the demand, the need for holding the UK government, the UK state departments, ministers, and their agencies to account. Now that is our first comment after coming across the exchange between Kathy Newman and Isabel Oakeshott. That is something that we have just introduced. We shall be continuing in due course by updating on that. Now let's see where the Private Eye magazine, the current issue of the Private Eye magazine, what is it doing? So there is we can't locate the Private Eye take on against Isabella Oakeshott this time, this minute. So we shall be, as I said, catching up and updating later, another time. And there is a piece about Christopher Hope, who has left the Daily Telegraph as associate politics editor and is joining the GB News. We shall be talking about all of those topically in due course, of course. And back to the issue of Kathy Newman deriding Isabel Oakeshott. Kathy Newman is known as a racist and as a liar herself because she had to apologize for an anti Muslim incident. She made up something in South London. Now, we don't know whether Isabel Oakeshott, not known for standing against racism, has done the research or had done the research about Kathy Newman's past herself. But I'm sure that if she looks at Kathy Newman's records and profile, she will be able to find the evidence with which to retort Kathy Newman's attacks on her. Now, in the Financial Times of Friday, the 3rd of March 2023, in common with the other titles in Fleet Street, there is an item about the MI5 apologizing for Manchester failure. Now, let's look at this particular copy. It says arena bombing. Inquiry report reveals missed opportunity to prevent terror attack. MI5 has said it is profoundly sorry after a public inquiry found that the 2017 Manchester Arena terror attack might have been prevented. Or might have been prevented or was preventable. Had the security agency acted promptly on intelligence relating to the bomber. In his third and final report, inquiry chair Sir John Saunders said yesterday, that is Thursday, the 2nd of March, that had particular information been quickly written and followed up, MI5 might have tracked Salman Abedi to a car loaded with explosives days before the attack. Abedi, a university dropout and Islamist radical, killed 22 people and injured more than 100 others when he detonated a homemade device at Manchester Arena on the 22nd of May 2017 after a concert by US singer Ariana Grande. At the time of the bombing, Abedi was one of roughly 40,000 closed subjects of interest on the radar of security services, meaning he had previously been treated as a potential threat but had not been under investigation since 2014. The inquiry by Sir John Saunders found one specific piece of intelligence, the details of which have not been revealed for national security reasons, could have led to actions which might have prevented the attack had it been acted on. Now, this is not the first time that line has been published by the media, mainstream media in Britain, about the various state agencies, because UK state and its agencies, even as the pornographic millionaire David Sullivan has said, they don't work. And most of the so called commentators agree on one thing, regardless of the subject, that the UK state agencies are not fit for purpose. So, if we then take the narrative and the question to the allegation that Sajid Jabid has actually retailed on the day that the Special Immigration Appeals Tribunal Commission published their ruling against Shamima Begum, I mean, what what is the evidence that they have to justify the claim that Shamima Begum is a threat to national security? We are not making light of this, but because they have made this allegation dozens of times against Shamima Begum, what evidence is there? Okay, let's put it another way. If for national security reasons they are not prepared to identify the evidence, can they generally give a kind of interpretation that doesn't jeopardize any aspect of national security? Because as the writer in the Times, the letter writer in the Times on Friday has said, the letter writer from the somewhere in the north of the country. Let's check if I can find the Times of Friday. All right, the Times newspaper of Friday, the 3rd of March 2023, has got one letter about Begum, Shamima Begum, says His Honor Andrew Hamilton from Nottingham. And it says barring Begum, meaning barring Shamima Begum from coming back to the UK. It says, your second leader, Stolen Lives, February 28th, referred to the raising of the age at which someone may lawfully marry. It also pointed out that no one under the age of 18 may get a tattoo or buy a single firework, presumably because the state takes the view that they are not old enough to make a rational decision about such matters. It might therefore be thought a little odd that Shamima Begum could be considered by the courts at the age of only 15 to be able to form a rational decision to join ISIS. His honored judge, well, he's not saying judge, but it looks like he's probably a judge. His honor, Andrew Hamilton, Nottingham. That's on page 26 of the Times, Friday, the 3rd of March 2023. Now, who is Andrew Hamilton? Is it possible to access any details about him? Let's check if we can do that. His honor, Andrew Hamilton, Nottingham. We are entering all of that from the Times. Okay, he's Andrew Ninian Roberts Hamilton, Nottingham Park Conservation Trust. And he resigned from that on the 20th of November 2014. And he had been appointed on the 20th of July 1992. Then he is also shown as having resigned from the Nottingham and Nottinghamshire United Services Club Limited. And then he also resigned from the Nottingham Park Conservation Trust. Now, this is Andrew Ninian Roberts Hamilton. Let's see if we can find. From left are Michael Oaty, QC, his Honour Judge Michael Stokes, QC, Andrew Wout, and his Honour Judge Andrew Hamilton, QC. So this is the judge that is pictured in this Facebook account on the 12th of January 2015. So this is a picture of Andrew Hamilton, assuming that this is the Nottinghamshire Law Society, so it is the same person. Now, if he can see that, the contradiction in the application of the law and the legislation about age of maturity and age of capacity to be trusted to make a reasonable decision, credible decision. How is it that none of the people who considered the appeal, the latest appeal by Shamima Begum, could see that? How is it again that the Supreme Court that actually rejected Shamima Begum's appeal against the Home Secretary? No, it wasn't an appeal by Shamima Begum. It was an appeal by the government, by the Home Office, against the Court of Appeal ruling in favor of Shamima Begum, seeking to return to the United Kingdom to defend herself against the removal of her British by birth citizenship by stupid Jabid. Let's check what the Supreme Court said. So there are 5 entries, 6 entries on the first showing of this Shamima Begum against the Secretary of State for Home Department. That was an action, a ruling 2020. Then Begum against Special Immigration Appeal Commission and others. 2020. Begum on the application of and the Special Immigration Appeal Commission and another. 2021. Home Office, Central Government, and then Shamima Begum, C8, C10, deprivation, case management, and direction, and the Shamima Begum. So there are quite a few entries. Now let's see if there is any more. So this one is not about Shamima Begum. So quite a few, but not the latest one is available on the ordinary search. In the comment that we have seen on the internet, carried by the outlet called Conservative Homes, there is a contribution from a person that says they have got a PhD on war studies. There is a book available online, authored by that individual, presumably based on their PhD research at King's College, University of London, Sarah Ingham. But the piece that Sarah Ingham has written for Conservative Homes is different in the sense that it has got references to some of the facts that the usual references to Shamima Begum in the Fleet Street media do not contain. But that's it. Apart from that, this Sarah Ingham piece only goes up to the point where this honored judge Ingham from Nottingham makes in the letter in the Times, dated the 3rd of March 2023, and also Frederick Forsyth in his piece about Shamima Begum in the Daily Express. None of these people recognize the existence of Tower Hamlets, and they don't recognize the existence of the whole community. Although Shamima Begum was born British and has never been to Bangladesh, only her parents come from Bangladesh, so she is of Bangladeshi descent. Despite that fact, that she hasn't been to Bangladesh and she's not a holder of a Bangladeshi citizenship, the main identification in terms of demography, in terms of the identity of the community she belongs to, is Bangladeshi, based in Britain, the Britain-based Bangladeshis. And despite the fact that in the Times magazine piece written by Joshua Baker, she says that she just doesn't feel Bengali, she doesn't feel British. Essentially, the only community that Shamima Begum can be located in is Bangladeshi. All right. So, apart from that, the Sarah Ingham piece is really not a new one and not a persuasive argument, any more persuasive than the others who have said that are or have been. What would make the difference if somebody, including this one, Sarah Ingham, were to begin to drop their racism? Because the reason why they don't refer to the Bangladeshi community in Tower Hamlets, the reason why they don't refer to the Muslims generally in the United Kingdom is to do with racism. Now, I don't know whether Sarah Ingham has personal kind of accounts of meeting William Shawcross, but I have met Shawcross, and I think I met Shawcross before Sarah Ingham. I don't know her age, but before Sarah Ingham probably left school, or primary school, or whatever. I met Shawcross during a public talk he gave at the Institute of Contemporary Arts. Now, he's a racist and he's an anti Muslim, And all the racists that I have factually, evidentially observed at the events held in the Institute of Contemporary Arts, which I haven't visited for a very long time, but when I did visit and did encounter him, I found that he was completely contemptuous, as a racist he would be, but he's also dishonest, as his entry in the Wikipedia shows. Somebody who claimed to have made a name by investigating the genocide, Pol Pot's genocide in Cambodia. I mean, he's now completely reversed his, contradicted himself on everything, including being a fan now of Henry Kissinger. So, anyone who appointed Shawcross to review anything to do with the Muslims must have done that in expecting, clearly expecting, additional ammunition to hurl against the Muslim community. Now, she says, Sharaingam, she approvingly refers to him or quotes him as saying that Muslims have been the main victims of the Islamist, as they call it, terrorists. Now, of course, Muslims have been, but it has to go beyond that. There has to be an expectation that Muslims, independently of any connectivity with any terrorists or terrorism or any Islamists, are ordinarily as capable of articulating and speaking for themselves as anybody else. But there is no sign in Sarah Ingam's piece that she recognizes the Muslim as a community at all. It follows that she wouldn't know anything about the campaigns that I do and I have been doing. And the particular campaign that I did 5 years or so before Shamima Begum was even born, to keep that school, Dainford School, from being converted into a mixed sex school, and to keep that as a single sex boys' school, which is what the mainly Jewish population of parents wanted for 100 years. And there is no element in Sarah Ingam's piece of any evidence about any connection, interaction with the community whatsoever, and the role being played by anyone in the community. Whereas the fact is that the East London Mosque, has been mentioned in entries published by Wikipedia as being the location, the source, the center where, or base from where the women called the Sisters Forum operated, as they groomed and brainwashed Sharmina Begum. Sharmina Begum is also mentioned by Sarah Ingham. But apart from that, Sarah Ingham also repeats the spelling mistake. There is no such name as abase. Abase in the English meaning is a bad word. And a surname called Amira Abase must be an error, a mistake. It's actually Abbasi. Somebody misspelled it wherever they did the misspelling. So it seems that Sarah Ingham hasn't understood the basic nomenclature, and she has not checked. So she has kind of lifted from the general media outlet and bits of internal contents released or made available by the likes of the racist anti-Muslim Shawcross. So whatever she says that she is our problem. Shamima Begum is not our problem unless you define who the our is. Because the Supreme Court judges are our members of the population that she obviously refers to, as are the Special Immigration Appeal Commission, as is Sajid Stupid Javid, as is Suella Braverman, who, in the times of the same day that is Friday, is is echoing William Shawcross and using the cover of Islamists, which actually has the impact on the Muslims. It's a very sophisticated and subtle spelling, linguistic distinction without any substance. The distinction doesn't matter because it actually misrefers to the Muslim population. Now, in the piece written by Caitlin Moran in the Times of the same date, it's about Matt Hancock and Isabel Oakeshott. As I pointed out in the previous edition, that she has made a mistake in using the legal terminology about corporate manslaughter, because corporate manslaughter, by definition, cannot be held, laid against an individual. It can be laid against a corporation and an entity, but it has to be wider than an individual. So, if Matt Hancock is prosecuted, he has to be prosecuted personally, and the health department and whoever else was involved in the decision to not allow the preventive testing, etc., to be done for the vulnerable people, residents in the care homes, they were to be prosecuted as well. But that is a theoretical kind of expectation, not expectation, observation. It is most unlikely to happen. Why? Because generally speaking, the government departments are not held to account. And as the manipulations that are still continuing, manipulations by Boris Johnson to get out of the allegation now that he lied, he misled Parliament. And he is not being held to account. He is being given unlimited, unending, limitless opportunities and excuses to excuse himself and lie on, as the former French ambassador to the UK correctly described him, congenital liar. And as the evidence of the sum total of the evidence of the rulings formally delivered by the three judges in the High Court against baby angel Geronimo and in favor of the DEFRA criminals show, even if there is a prosecution, even if there is a, let's say, public law action against the tort action against the then Secretary of State, the judges are unlikely to find against him, because the tendency in the judiciary is to act as rubber stamp for the government agency. And in the cases before, for example, when the Guardian, then editor Peter Preston, disclosed the identity of Saratis Dal to the government swiftly moved to prosecute Saratis Dal for leaking the information to the Guardian. That was an act by Saratis Dal in support of the peace movement. Let's see what the entries say about Saratis Dal now. So she's described as former Foreign and Commonwealth Office clerical officer who was jailed for leaking British government documents to a newspaper. In 1983, Tisdale anonymously sent the Guardian photocopied documents detailing when American cruise missile nuclear weapons would be arriving in Britain. The document set out the political tactics Michael Heseltine, the then defense minister, would use to present the matter in the House of Commons. The government brought a legal action against the Guardian, seeking an order requiring the newspaper to reveal its source. Although the Guardian successfully argued that it was protected by Section 10 of the Contempt of Court Act 1981 from providing the information, the decision by Mr. Justice Scott was almost immediately overturned. The appeal by the Attorney General was on the grounds that, although the documents themselves were harmless, a civil servant capable of leaking them might leak other documents which could pose a threat to national security. The editor of The Guardian, Peter Preston, was prepared to defy the court order and go to prison, but was advised that it was more likely that a fine would be imposed on the newspaper, increasing as long as refusal persisted. This could potentially bankrupt the paper. Defying the order would also violate the Guardian's policy that the law should be obeyed. A meeting of Guardian journalists was held in a mood that was, according to David McKee, deputy editor at the time, troubled but sympathetic rather than outraged. After the meeting, Preston complied with the court order to hand over the documents, which he described as the worst day of his 20-year editorship, and immediately submitted his resignation, which was not accepted. The documents were identified as coming from an FCO photocopying machine, which led to Tisdale. In March 1984, Tisdale pleaded guilty to a charge under Section 2 of the Official Secrets Act 1911. She was sentenced to 6 months in prison and released after 4 months. The legality of the order compelling the Guardian to surrender the documents and thus reveal their source was upheld in a decision of the House of Lords. Secretary of State for Defense, Guardian Newspapers Limited, 1985, by a majority of 3 against 2. As of 2005, Tisdale worked for an ethical property company developing accommodation for charitable organizations and community groups. So Sarah Tisdale did that with a clear motive. So, what we shall be doing, we shall be bringing an end to this particular edition, which will be at 08:55 GMT, and the length of this broadcast is 1 hour and 5 minutes at the time we finish it. I will continue updating on all the issues